Welcome once again to the Gaming News Canada show. I'm your host, Steve McAllister. Some 3,000 people representing all sectors of the gaming industry, not just here in Canada, but in the United States and around the rest of the world, will gather at the Metro Toronto Convention Centre next week for the annual Canadian Gaming Summit. Among the many panels that will take place over the 3 days of the summit is one on Wednesday afternoon that's focused on identifying and combating human trafficking in land-based casinos. The moderator for the panel is the Chief Executive Officer and founder of the Association of Certified Gaming Compliance Specialists, Dr. Ian Messenger. We've been trying for some time now to get the good doctor on the Gaming News Canada show, and we finally succeeded. So welcome Ian to your maiden appearance on the podcast.
Thank you, Steve. It's great to be here.
Hey, Ian, this is a great panel that's been put together, and just right off the top, sadly, your panel is going up against a panel that I'm moderating on Wednesday the 19th. So unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to sit in and listen on it, but I do look forward to catching up with you either later on the Wednesday afternoon or Thursday before the summit wraps up. But you're going to be joined on that panel by Derek Ram from Connectify Advisors, Kevin DeBruckier, but from the BCLC, and hopefully I haven't butchered Kevin's last name too badly. Hard Rock International Vice President and friend of Gaming News Canada, Paul Palazzari, who we've known almost from the onset of Gaming News Canada. And last but not least, Julie Driedick, the Executive Director of the Center to End Human Trafficking. Ian, I mentioned before, just before I hit the record button, I remember a few years ago seeing an article either on LinkedIn or coming across Twitter on the concerns and the connection between human trafficking and casinos. And I was really caught off guard by that at the time, and it's something I've followed since then. But I was hoping we could just start by explaining that connection to our audience.
Sure, and it's a really challenging topic, I think, for many of us to talk about, and this is really where having a panel at the Canadian Gaming Summit, having the work we've done with the Canadian Centre to End Human Trafficking already, we've really, we're starting a conversation, which I think is really important. Human trafficking has been something which we have seen explored here in Canada with financial institutions. We've seen many of the top banks work on Project Protect, the FinTrack project, looking at money flows related to human trafficking. As I started the journey looking at human trafficking in the casino industry, my background being compliance and being anti-money laundering was very much focused on the financial flows. It was really only after connecting with the Canadian Centre to End Human Trafficking back in 2023 that it really opened my eyes to the physical kind of manifestation of human trafficking in our casinos. If we think about the casino environment, we think about the resort environment where you have hotels and accommodations. These are ripe venues for human exploitation. The Canadian Centre to End Human Trafficking have done some really interesting work on mapping hotspots of human trafficking throughout Canada. And they actually worked with us back in 2023 to create the industry's first short course on human trafficking in the casino industry. And this is actually a free course that we offer. It's called Human Trafficking Risks in Casino Gaming. And as part of that project, we were able to map the location of highways and byways throughout Canada. We were able to map where the major casinos were, where the resorts and traditional land-based casinos were, as well as where there were human trafficking hotspots. And you could overlay these, layer by layer. There was such an overlap between where human trafficking was occurring and where major casinos were located, and you could see these all along the highways. So really, when this came to light, it really started a number of conversations with industry leaders. I was speaking to counterparts in other provinces. I was working with the center, as I say, to launch this free course in human trafficking risks in casino gaming, uh, which we made free of charge. We made this freely available as a matter of principle, and we've really um, been impressed with the uptake. We've had individuals from across not just Canada, but across North America signing up for this course, wanting to learn more about human trafficking. When it comes to our panel, I think we really are going to have an end-to-end discussion on the state of human trafficking in casinos in Canada. I mean, we could not have asked for a more experienced, more involved panel. We have individuals who have years, decades of investigative experience in policing. We have regulators. We have VP of global social responsibility. So really, the conversation, and not to try and persuade your listeners to move to our panel rather than yours, but I think it's going to be a really insightful and opening discussion.
Yep, no, absolutely. And I know I don't want to get too deep into your panel. We'll save the best information and insights for the 19th. But for people to listen to this podcast, and if, for someone who goes to casino on a regular basis, are there a couple of red flags or warning signs that you might see in a casino that would prompt you to find a security person or find somebody and say, hey, I think there's something's not quite right here as it relates to human trafficking?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's something which we try and cover in our short course as well. Just to say one final comment about the short course, we designed it for everyone, so not just those working in casino compliance. It's aimed at front of house staff as well, because really, when it comes to uh, identifying potential human trafficking in casinos, it's really all about what you see and what you hear. Are there individuals who look as if they're being controlled or manipulated by someone else? Are there individuals who um, look pressured, look uncomfortable, need assistance? It's um, when we've looked at the indicators of human trafficking within the casino floor, a lot of it is common sense. I think if you see someone looking uncomfortable, looking not free to conduct their own activities, say something. If you see something, say something. That's the slogan, I think.
Ian, you kind of came to the Canadian gaming market in 2021 during COVID. It coincided. It's the same time I started following this industry. It's the same year that Bill C-218 was passed to expand legal sports betting in Canada. You have your own really interesting story on how you got to the point of establishing the ACGCS, coming from the UK National Crime Agency and working in an international banking community. But maybe just tell a little bit about your story, your journey, and then the motivation for you to start the association.
Sure. It's a long story. I'll try and make it as succinct as possible. So as you say, I came from the UK. You probably tell that from my accent. I I was a police officer in the UK for just over 10 years with the UK National Crime Agency and its predecessor. And then I came to Canada in the 2010s. I was a souvenir that my future wife brought back, and I moved into anti-money laundering and compliance for an international bank here um, in Toronto. Working anti-money laundering, working on managing and leading anti-money laundering teams. And after about 4 years, I was looking for the next challenge when it came to AML, when it came to compliance. And it was at that time, as you say, we were going through the early stages of Cullen. We were looking at C218 coming online, and really, to me, the next big challenge when it came to compliance was the casino and gaming industry. So I was fortunate at the time that the Ontario Lottery and Gaming had a vacancy for the director of anti-money laundering, which I was successful, moved in to that role with OLG, started overseeing the anti-money laundering program for Ontario's casinos. And it was really at that point, as we were seeing the effects of 218, seeing the opening up of the iGaming market, it really brought me back to my practice in education and training. So throughout the time, working in policing, working in banking, I was also very involved in teaching. So I've taught at many colleges and universities on topics on compliance, on anti-money laundering, and it was really an observation that I made when 218 came live, is that I started seeing my staff being poached by the new iGaming operators, and as a result, needing to rehire anti-money laundering staff to my team at OLG. And the observation I made is you have a lot of individuals in Toronto, in Canada, who have experience working in financial institutions. So they understand what money laundering is. They understand what fraud is, for example. They understand what the various elements of regulatory compliance is, but they don't have that specific experience in the gaming industry. So being able to understand odds manipulation, or how sports betting works, responsible gaming, for example, all of these specific topics really weren't covered anywhere. And it was at that point I thought, this is really where I want to be working in education. So myself and a few others, we got together and we launched the Association of Certified Gaming Compliance Specialists, and we really sought to build a one-of-a-kind training program for individuals who were coming into the world of casino and iGaming compliance, and also those who've been here for a while. And really, that's what's led me and our office to now, 2 years later, be having academic partnerships with Dalhousie University in Canada, in Nova Scotia. We have trained a number of regulators in Canada and the US on compliance and compliance best practices. We've been doing a lot of in-person training in the Caribbean, for example, as well. So really, we've gone from being a very small team 2 years ago to being an organization where we have an industry-leading certification that's very comprehensive. We have multiple different pathways where people can study, whether it's directly through us or through a university. We're the only training organization that has that academic partnership as well, which is really appealing to a lot of regulators and operators alike.
It's interesting, and as you talk about the education and people coming into the industry and the poaching, I think a topic that we've addressed on the podcast for pretty much since day one, and you'll be familiar with this, is just the opportunities that there are in this new regulated industry in Ontario. And we've seen, to your point, we've seen people cross over from the banking community, from the legal community. A lot of people I've got to know over the past 3 decades in sports media have moved into this industry and taken on roles with operators. having said all that, it almost seems to be a no-brainer that anybody who's moving in this industry, and again, this will come across as an advertorial or free promo for the association, but it does feel like it's a no-brainer that you should take this course just to learn about compliance.
Thanks for the free promo there, Steve. But that's exactly what we were focusing on. Really, the fact that we want to make working in the casino and iGaming space attractive and achievable for individuals. I know many former colleagues who have come across from working in banking to working in the new iGaming operations, and they're talking about how technology driven these operators are, how nimble they are, how it's a really great place to work. So if we can support that, that really really adds value, I think, to our mission. We continue to hear great feedback from the industry about how we've designed this course. We get great feedback from individuals who've taken it. And the comment gets made time and time again, which I think you kind of alluded to, is that it helps people make that transition. It helps make it because we cover the gaming specific elements as well. There's nothing comparable.
Yeah, just in terms of just following up on your comment about the feedback. I mean, how has the association evolved over the past two plus years, and what is kind of some of that specific feedback that you get from people, and how much of that feedback have you taken and applied it to how your programs have evolved?
Sure. I mean, we have gone from nothing to something in 2 years. It really has been a whirlwind experience, and it's one that I certainly wasn't anticipating it to be that significant. We started with a small team and an idea. We had around 30 topics which we thought would be great for a certification program that would appeal to those who were wanting to come into the market, as well as those already working. As we spoke with more in the industry and potential candidates, we added more content. We've built that up now to 73 modules in total now. We started our certification off as a purely self-study version. We started it as a traditional document, as a PDF study guide, followed by an examination. We've subsequently, just recently, transformed it into a fully online experience. So we have a new learning management system. So responding to feedback from individuals that sometimes we learn better bite size. Sometimes we learn on our smartphones or our tablets when we can. So we built a new platform in response to that. At the same time, we were hearing that whilst people enjoyed a professional certification, they also wanted something more academic. So we sought a partnership with the Dalhousie University in Nova Scotia through their Faculty of Opening and Continuing Learning, and we've actually built 2 micro-credential courses with them. One is Casino Gaming Investigations. This started originally as a 12-week online course, which was mapped against our certification. So an individual taking the Dalhousie micro-credential would receive our certification as well as a university credential. And we found that this really addressed a lot of requests that we were getting. And then we went one step further just this year and launched a self-paced version of that micro-credential. We found that with our 12-week course, a lot of regulators in the US, specifically First Nations regulators, were sending their entire departments on this course. And we were getting feedback. It's very difficult to manage having a full-time job and study. So we created a self-paced version of that. At the same time, we were getting feedback from individuals who've taken our course about what comes next, what more can we study. So we developed, in response again to feedback, a responsible gaming and player protection micro-credential. This is a shorter course. It's around 12 hours worth of study, again through Dalhousie University. And again, we were getting feedback. What's next? What more can we study? So we've now launched, again with Dalhousie, a certificate in gaming leadership. So this was really interesting from 2 points. This is a next level. It's a more intensive course. It's four individual courses in total. It's also designed for gaming staff more broadly, not just gaming compliance. And that was something which we noticed over the past 2 years. The individuals who've been taking our courses, they don't always come from compliance. We've had individuals from land-based gaming. We've had from relationship management, from internal audit. We've had a whole spectrum of individuals in the gaming industry that want to upskill when it comes to compliance. So we've really been attuned to that feedback, and we're currently just in discussion about with another university about potentially launching postgraduate level courses, again co-offered, co-branded. So we're continuing to listen to the audience, listen to the market, make sure that we offer products that meet the need.
We have a lot of guests in this show, Ian, who talk about the challenges with different jurisdictions having a different set of regulations, and this is especially true in the U.S., where I think we're up to 39 states, I think now, with legal sports betting, and the frustration that operators and others go through negotiating their way through those different sets of rules. Is that a challenge at all for your curriculum, or is it a case where you don't really, what you're teaching doesn't really get into that the deep dive into the regulatory side?
I mean, it's a very good question. It's something we talked about heavily internally about how we should address the sometimes fractured regulatory compliance landscape, and we noted that it would be difficult to have a training course which was constantly updated as new regulations come online, as new jurisdictions legalize. So what we decided to do is to create a certification which was global in nature and covered the essentials of regulatory compliance, but without going into province by province or state by state specifics. We have found that what we do in many instances is where we have a regulator, for example, or we have a casino operator that's working in a specific jurisdiction, we may offer a customized version of our certification for them. So we add additional content, additional state-specific material. We've done that a number of times in response to different needs. I think for us, we were trying to find that balance between having too much information when it comes to regulations and too little. I mean, I'm just thinking about some of the individuals who've signed up for our courses this week. We've had some from Australia. We've had some from the Philippines, for example, to make them study the regulations in Ohio, for example, would not really address their needs. So we try to find that balance, but we are very flexible, and we do offer bespoke and customized training as well. We've done that quite a few times now.
Just going back to the employment opportunities for a second. I mean, here in Canada, it's sometimes easy to get fixated in Ontario, but we do have lottery and gaming corporations across the rest of the country, and those corporations employ a lot of people in different areas, including compliance. Are you seeing that there is engagement from the lottery and gaming corps when it comes to enrolling in your programs?
We've had a number of different provinces send their staff through our programs. We've had Saskatchewan, BC, we've had Nova Scotia, as well as Ontario, sending their compliance staff through our programs. We've had individuals who've been wanting to move into iGaming operations in those provinces take our program. So we certainly are very pleased to see the gaming corps look at our work and see the value that it brings. As I say, Steve, there's nothing else out there when it comes to gaming compliance training. So maybe we shouldn't be too surprised.
Yeah, and I'd say if you and I were having this conversation back in February 2021, Ian, as someone who knew next to zero about the gambling industry, I think I would have benefited from enrolling in the program and just getting just getting some real good insight and learning about the industry by registering for one of your programs.
It's a field which is continuing to attract a lot of attention, a lot of interest. I still teach at several colleges here in Canada, and speaking to my students as they're thinking, what comes next after graduation, what opportunities exist, I sing the praises of the iGaming space specifically because, if I go back to my time at college and university and how things were a couple of years ago, the traditional route was you would go into compliance for a financial institution, and that was the only option. It's one thing working for a legacy top 5 bank in Canada. It's a very different experience working for a technology-driven FanDuel or PointsBet, for example. So it's a lot of, as I speak to students and young graduates about the opportunities we have here in Canada, there's a lot of interest in the iGaming space specifically.
Hey, and that's a great segue into this next question, and I was going to ask it during the conversation we're having, and that's just on the whole definition of compliance. And we've had so many guests in this forum. I've written about it so often in the newsletter for more than 3 years now. And when you think of compliance, you think of the regulators, and you think of companies. We had Matt Holt and Eric Frank on recently from IC360 talking about their merger. You have the Geo Compliance and the Makotos and the GBG PLCs of the world. It is like how this might be an awkward way to ask it, Ian, but like how broad is the definition of compliance in the gaming industry, or am I just asking a bad question here?
I think compliance in the gaming industry is changing. It's certainly here in Canada, post Cullen Commission, I think things have started to also speed up as well. I think historically, when we think about compliance, often compliance was this kind of standalone role that was working in a silo. It was responsible for following regulations that were set by regulators and governments. I think we've seen a change. We've seen a shift to compliance being much more holistic, much more about doing the right thing. I speak a lot to gaming commissions and to operators about building a culture of compliance, and the gaming industry is really much more unique when it comes to compliance, I think, because if we think about how a financial institution approaches compliance, you have a compliance unit, you have an anti-money laundering unit, you have a fraud unit, for example. In the gaming industry, we have frontline staff, we have table games dealers writing suspicious activity reports and raising concerns. So it really is a whole of casino effort. And where I think the industry is changing is we're looking to be more agile, looking to be more streamlined, with the ultimate goal of being more effective. You know, we've seen what happens when compliance doesn't occur. We've seen we've seen what happened in BC in the subsequent media and government spotlight that focused on the industry there. Um, as I speak to individuals in the industry, I keep hearing the same thing, that people don't want to be the next BC, at least in terms of having a government commission. I should maybe clarify that, Steve. But that's really where we're seeing compliance moving from being reactive to a little bit more proactive.
Right.
You know, and compliance is not about saying no. That's a big distinction I would want to make is, you know, compliance has this reputation of saying no, we can't do this, or no, we can't do that. But really, compliance is about saying, here's how we can do it in a risk managed way. You know, here's how we can deliver the this product or service in the casino or the iGaming space whilst managing potential risks.
You talk about government, and again, Ian, I may have to charge you a fee for marketing services here, but you know, one thing we often I've read about, especially in the U.S., is gaming commissions where you have people sitting in those commissions that have no experience whatsoever in the gambling industry, and you look at provincial governments, and I assume that applies to those agencies, if you want to call them that as well. So again, it would seem that what you're offering would also benefit people whose everyday work, whether with whether it's the AGCO or with in Ontario with the Minister of the Attorney General's office, Minister of Finance, or even with the Gaming Commission, where what you're providing would be a worthwhile service to those employees.
Thanks again for the promo there, Steve. It's absolutely true. We've seen, especially in the US, we've seen a number of gaming commissions have their commissioners sign up and go through our training program. We've actually run bespoke training across the US for gaming commissions, for new commissioners, for existing commissioners, who then ultimately have enrolled their entire compliance department. And we've been working with a number of them consistently to help redesign and reframe how that gaming commission approaches compliance.
Yeah, one thing you mentioned in helping me prepare for the podcast is that ACGCS has also created a new responsible gaming and player protection course, and that certainly, as we both know, RG and player protection are hot button topics in the industry right now, especially here in North America. Can you maybe just talk a little bit about that new course?
Sure. So this course, we launched this course in the fall. Again, this course was driven by requests from industry, actually a request from a regulator here in Canada, actually, to address this topic. We were getting a number of inquiries about how departments, how staff can upskill in RG, because this was a very and still is a very hot button topic. If we think about last year, we had the advertising standards being looked at by the AGCO. That's not going away. So we got together, and again through Dalhousie University, we built this responsible gaming and player protection course. We've designed it to be manageable. It's fully online. It's 12 hours in duration, and it covers topics such as player behavior, player indicators, We look at the role of advertising and marketing from a responsible gaming perspective. We look at interventions. We talk about the tools and techniques and the frameworks that have worked in industry. We sought consultations, and we have external content from a number of leaders in the RG space who have implemented RG programs in their own gaming commissions in the United States predominantly. And we found that this course, because it's fully online, because it's concise. We've had a lot of interest, a lot of uptake, not just here in Canada, but we've actually just in the last week we've had a number from South America sign up. We've had a number of regulators from Europe send their staff through this program. It's fully online, and I think that's really how we see a lot of our training working well, because we know that the casino industry, it's a 24/7 sector. It's hard to get a bunch of people in a room at the same time to have classroom training. So putting this online platform together has really helped us. And seeing this responsible gaming course really be really take off. We've had a lot of great feedback. We're working with a number of agencies to help embed the principles of the course into their own RG program. But yeah, it's available from Dalhousie. It's also available directly from the ACGCS as a certificate as well.
And I assume, Ian, that you've had conversations as well with Paul Burns from the Canadian Gaming Association and some of that association's members.
We haven't had conversations with Paul Burns directly, but certainly the members of the CGA have reached out to us, have expressed an interest. Again, I think with the academic standing that we have with the partnership with Dalhousie University, and we're really looking forward to at the Canadian Gaming Summit meeting many of the members that we haven't met before, and talking about these courses, the partnerships that we have, the potential a bespoke training that we can deliver.
Yeah, and I'll say, Ian, as someone who, I spent 2 years in corporate affairs with Bruce Power at the nuclear generator station up here in Kincardine, and had to do a lot of online training and learning to have some necessary standards to be working there. The modules, it's pretty easy now, and I think for an old guy like myself who's not, I guess I would call myself somewhat tech savvy, their learning modules are a great way to go now. And as you mentioned, it's not always possible to get 25 people into a room at once, and people have to fit it into their work schedules. And so I assume that there's been a lot of tinkering and tweaking with the modules to get your programs to a place where it is easy to get your quote students engaged in the programs.
That's absolutely right. When we first launched our course, we started off as a traditional PDF document. I think it was 430 plus pages of material, which was standard with certifications at the time. But we have to always be reflexive and adaptive to our audience. So we have a lot of individuals in their early 20s, in their 30s, who are more tech savvy, more used to consuming content on their smartphones. So we spent a lot of time and effort on building our new learning management program called ACGCS Online, and this is a fully adaptive program platform. It works on smartphones, on tablets, on laptops, on desktops, and we've tinkered, as you mentioned, with module length. We've broken up what was a 400-page document into 5-minute, 10-minute, 15-minute long bite-sized lessons. So much easier to consume on the go, and that's um, when we've done our feedback, we've looked at the analytics. That's how we see a lot of our students learn. We see them studying for maybe 1 hour at a time, coming back the next day or the morning or the evening after, and consuming some more. And I think really to give our audience, or to give our customers choice and flexibility really benefits them. We've seen students complete our program in 2 weeks. We've seen other individuals take just shy of 2 years to complete the program. We were very intentional in not imposing time limits on the learning process. We were also very intentional not to make our courses cost prohibitive either. You know,
Hey, Ian, just two more questions. I mean, is there a need for the association to have some validation from the industry by what you're doing?
I think we're getting f- already from the volume of inquiries that we're getting, from the volume of signups that we're getting. I mean, obviously, as a relatively new organization, we've only been around less than 2 years. We are still building our brand awareness. We're still building those relationships with gaming operators. I mean, gaming's been around a lot longer than we have, but what we have been finding is that when people hear about our products and they see what we deliver, we're getting that interest, from the regulators, from the operators. And I think where we are, we've been intentional of the past 2 years to really have a relatively low profile, so we can focus on building that product offering, building that these courses which the industry would appreciate. And now this year and onwards, we're really switching into uh, road shows, trade shows, really moving out into the field and meeting new individuals, talking about our products, talking about how we can help.
Last question, Ian. What comes next for the association? Is there anything that's a top priority beyond the trade shows and getting more awareness out there?
So really, there's something which we are working on right now. We're working on a potential MBA in gaming compliance, working with a university in the UK, actually, working to put together an online MBA in gaming compliance, which will be the first in the industry. And really, we're very much focused on continuing to hear from the industry about what they need, what they're looking for, how they want training to be delivered. We're certainly um, looking forward very much to the Canadian Gaming Summit. That's our first time as an exhibitor, so do come to A40 and stop by and see us. But I think after those conversations, we will be looking at adding additional courses, additional material, and we're we're hopefully planning next year to have our first gaming compliance summit.
Very cool. I'll make sure. Let me know when that happens, Ian, and I'd love to be there either virtually or in person. For more information on the Association of Certified Gaming Compliance Specialists, you can go to www.acgcs.org. And also, Charlie Horner from SPC Americas has a really good article on Ian and the association this week, and you can find that at sbcamericas.com. We'll also include a link to Charlie's story in the Substack post with this podcast. Dr. Ian Messenger is the founder and CEO of the ACGCS. Ian, hey, this is a long overdue conversation. You and I think, we've banged up the messaging board on LinkedIn pretty good over the last 2 years. So it's really great to finally have a face-to-face meeting, even if it's over a virtual studio. And I'm excited for us to shake hands and to meet each other next week at the Canadian Gaming Summit.
I'm looking forward to it, Steve. Thanks so much for the invite. We've been a significant follower of your podcast and your show for some time, so it's great we could finally connect.
Great. Thanks for that, Ian. That's it for this episode of the Gaming News Canada show. As always, you can find this and all of our podcasts at gamingnewscanada.ca and also on the various podcasting platforms. We will be at the Canadian Gaming Summit next week. We look forward to seeing everybody who's attending the conference, and we will be doing some podcasts from the Metro Toronto Convention Center as well. That's it for this edition. Thanks, as always, everybody, for listening, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you for listening to the Gaming News Canada show. Sign up for our newsletter at gamingnewscanada.ca. Follow Steve McAllister on LinkedIn. Message Steve if you're interested in being a sponsor or featured guest.